order. We're here today for the Education, Environment, Sustainability meeting, February 1st, 2023. Can we have a roll call, please?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent. Mr. Schron. Mr. Schron is absent. Ms. Conwell.
Present.
There is not a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilmember Miller is in attendance.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one is signed in.
We're going to hold the minutes from January 18th because we don't have a quorum. There's no specific legislation referred to committee. However, we do have a presentation and update. First, Lights Out Cleveland is going to talk about the Lights Out program and how that interplays with county buildings, and then we'll hear from the Convention Center, Global Center people. So we're going to start off with Lights Out Cleveland. Councilman Schron is joining us.
Thank you. So do you want, should I put on the power? Yeah, it's on. Yep. I'm Tim Jasinski. I work at Lake Erie Nature and Science Center. I'm a wildlife rehabilitation specialist there.
And if you want, you can start off with your presentation with the PowerPoint.
Okay. So I put a little bit of presentation together to give a little bit of background about what Lights Out Cleveland is. It's a collaborative effort between a few different organizations to reduce window collisions on migrant songbirds in downtown Cleveland. Light and glass pose a huge risk to our native songbirds. These birds are migrants. These aren't birds that are here year round. These guys are just kind of stopping through from the boreal forest of Canada down to the South America and other parts of the world. Here's a little graph kind of just from 2019 data that we put together. Ohio Bird Conservation Initiative is the group based out of Columbus that kind of oversees all the Lights Out efforts in Ohio. And you can see how Cleveland is a huge numbers compared to other cities. There's a couple different reasons for that. One reason is that we're right on the lake, and the lake is a very important stopover point for these migrant songbirds, as well as a huge barrier with the lake being there and all of the city and the lights that are here. What happens, most of these songbirds migrate at nighttime. So they're flying over, following the stars and the moon and other things that we don't understand. And when they get to a city with a lot of light, they're somehow attracted to that white light for some reason. And we don't really understand why, just kind of moth set like your porch light, kind of similar thing where they fly into the city and they make night flight calls, which kind of excites the birds and they kind of draw together and they collide with windows. Here's some data that we put together for the last, since 2017 is when we started this. We've always known this was a problem with these birds hitting windows. Because, as a rehab center, we get calls about birds that are downtown Cleveland. We don't have the resource to pick up animals typically, but we designed this program in 2017 to really see what's happening in our city, and we didn't realize how much it was going to be. We still have to put some data together, but there's over 14,000 birds collected since 2017 down there. On average, about 3,000 birds a year are collected. There's more in the fall because there's young birds coming through from their first breed, first year of being born, and just migration patterns are different and stuff. But typically in the spring we collect around 800 birds, live and dead, and then around 2,500 or so in the fall. And every year is different, but that's kind of an average amount. And what we've found is that most of these collisions happen near green space. So the more plants and trees and habitat you have, it's good for the birds because these birds need that, for their refueling their systems when they're coming down, after flying all night long. But it poses a huge risk to these birds when you're right next to glass. So birds don't understand the concept of glass. They don't evolve with that. They don't know what it is. So there's two reasons why they hit glass. One is that they're attracted to the lights that are inside the building at nighttime when it's dark. So, downtown's pretty dark in the morning, and then the buildings are lit up, so they're attracted to that light and they hit the glass because of that. but also once it gets dawn and they're going to try to find where they're going now, get some food, they hit reflective glass. So, they see it as an extension of the habitat, not actually a mirrored image, and so they hit the glass and fall. So most collisions happen right at dawn, but typically they happen really throughout the day, but most of it is from pre-dawn to a little bit after dawn. There's a lot of questions regarding if these birds are the local birds like pigeons, house sparrows, starlings, but actually most of the birds we're collecting are neotropical migrants that don't really stay here for the summer season. They're up in the Bora Forest of Canada breeding all the way up to Alaska. And so we rarely get house sparrows. So those are the ones that you see typically year round hopping around. I mean, I think we've over 180, 190 species we've collected so far. So a team of volunteers, so we start at 5 a.m. From March 15th through the beginning of June, and August 15th through around mid-November is when most of the birds are going to be migrating through Ohio. So we get a team together, we walk around the streets of Cleveland, and we monitor certain buildings from where we found a lot of collisions at, and we just walk around the buildings over and over and over again. So, we'll get there at 5 o'clock in the morning, walk around one building, that might take 10, 15 minutes, and we come back around. So we record what species we find, the date that the bird was collected, the time, and the side of the building and what building it is. So we have all that data. So when all the birds come to Lake Erie Nature and Science Center, both dead and alive, we have volunteers and staff that process those birds, so we know exactly how many we get each year of how many species, and that goes into a database. So, like I mentioned before, if the city is dark, which is the whole goal of Lights Out Cleveland, is to reduce, exterior lighting that isn't needed for safety, and also trying to treat glass. That really helps out with these songbirds to continue their migration. There are dead bird photos in here, so I just want to let people know that that's going to be coming up soon. But weather is a huge factor with these birds as well when they're migrating. So often we'll have over 1 million, 2 million, 15 million birds flying over Cleveland at nighttime in one night migration. If you have a low pressure system that can actually affect the birds' migration, they'll come down into the city and kind of drop before they really want to, and then they're really trapped in the city because there's all that low pressure. They're flying lower, so they're more prone to being trapped into the city, and that can cause a lot of issues. Like I was saying before, here's good examples of buildings that are lit up at nighttime that really attract the birds. So they're attracted to that light for some reason. So you can see one of my volunteers capturing a bird at the window there because they'll flutter up against the window trying to get in. Another thing that we have found is that they want to feed in trees. Typically, most of these birds are feeding on insects, and so when you have either habitat on the inside or the outside, they think they can get into that tree from the tree that's right behind the photo here. So as they're traveling, they hit that glass and then they collide with the window. We found that the larger the windows, the more chance you have of collisions. So small little kind of windows like these here probably aren't too much of an issue. It's usually the first 2 floors that are the problem areas. And just the larger the window, the more reflection, the more issues you have typically, specifically around green space. So Public Square has awesome green space. There's a lot of trees and bushes and plants, and that's a good, draw for the birds, but also can be bad at the same time. There it goes. So you can see the reflection there in the morning. We actually had a wild turkey found at that building specifically last fall, and that's just, I couldn't believe when my team told me that. I'm like, a wild turkey, are you serious? And they collected and brought the bird in, and it was a female wild turkey. Don't know where she came from, maybe Cleveland Lakefront, but so you can see there's a lot of habitat downtown. This is the Mall Drive in between Lakeside and Superior, or Lakeside and St. Clair, but that's actually just glass. That wasn't actually, that was a reflection. So you can see kind of collisions happen year round. This female wood duck was just found just a few days ago by one of my volunteers that works down here. But we often find birds along these glass mirrors down there because it's kind of perfectly set in the habitat for these birds. So here's some photos.